So, Jeb, I can introduce you on your own podcast platform. Is that cool?
That works for me.
Jeb Johnson-Sewert.
That's right. Back to the early days.
Yeah.
That's a callback for anyone who's around back in the day.
Yeah. I think we'll... with these YouTube videos, they don't have to be formal by any means, but this is Jeb Stuart Johnson. I don't know what I'd call you at this point: nutrition, health, mindset coach. I don't know. You make money in fitness and nutrition.
Yeah.
Doing stuff.
I mean, like, the worst thing is like I tell people what I do and I kind of describe it, and they're like, "So you're like a life coach, huh?" And I'm like, "Fuck yeah, I guess I am."
Yeah.
I guess I am.
Well, yeah, it was just like, I don't know.
I don't want to be that, but yeah, technically that is what I am.
Well, even when I describe what I do now, I just say I'm a teacher and I coach nutrition. I don't know, but that changes all the time. Even when we were coaching nutrition, it was I don't know. I don't even feel like I'm they're like, so you do meal plans and stuff. I don't honestly know what I do. I think it was Mike who said it. I teach people how to pack their lunch every day. It's pretty much what I do. You do.
Well, it's I was talking to my buddy who owns a gym. Devin. He owns a gym down in Alabama, and he just expanded his gym, and so he opened up. He brought his buddy in. They opened up. They have a BJJ and karate space, and then they also have his lifting gym. And we were talking about, because I started coaching BJJ lately, and so is he. And he's we're both purple belts and older, and he's like, people really like the classes. You're a good coach. He's like, yeah, I'm a good coach. He's like, I might suck at BJJ, but I'm a good coach. I understand that part of it. And I was like, dude, that's exactly how I feel. It's I'm not the best BJJ practitioner, and I'm not even the best BJJ coach in particular, but I'm a good coach, so I can take these fundamental things and teach them. And I was like, so just the term coach, I think is just appropriate, because I coach across a lot of different modalities, and whether it's BJJ or nutrition or mindset, or occasionally I throw my clients lifting programs, even though that's definitely not my area of expertise, but I know enough to help them. And it's coach is just a good, easy catch-all term.
That's a good way of putting it. Because I'm old and a purple belt too, and I feel like I'm fairly...
You have a little bit better credentials than both Devin or I do, though.
World champion, Masters 2, super heavyweight, purple belt. Yeah, there was, but so it's I'm good enough to know enough to look at stuff and disseminate it enough to then coach stuff. I feel like people will come to me with advice or needing advice for things because of that.
Yeah, my eye is good, and I can explain to it. I can be like, "Here's what you're missing," and I'm very principle based in BJJ, because I'm not a moves guy. It's I'm a pressure guy. I'm just get find the place to figure out how to apply pressure. It's that's the funny thing is that takes till purple belt to really learn, which is if you could learn that fundamentally early on, I feel like life would be so much easier. But it's I think about principles, and I think about larger scales, and I can sit there and be like, okay, here's what you need to do. Da, da, da. I just can't physically do those things anymore. I've got a bendy kid, and I was like, I need you to go home and watch videos on rubber guard, because I can't teach it to you, but you will excel by using this technique.
Yeah, 100%. I even the Williams guard, I think.
Oh yeah, I love that.
It was hey, you can't do rubber guard, but you can do Williams guard. Can you show me? I'm like, no. But I thought that's for people with, I'm like, yeah, but I'm below that. You know what it is. But then to that point about pressure, it's we're doing we're doing class anyways. Long story short is my side control. I can get there, but I just fuck this. I'm not good at it. I'll just go to north south and do stuff. Because I'm fast and strong, but I can be good at side control. I'm big and I'm strong, and I look like someone who would be good at side control if you're at a gym. It's so. Anyways, my two main training partners are very good at it, and they're ultra heavies.
Oh,
and it was the coaches that was
BJ
there.
and AJ.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're big boys. Big boys.
He's I'm like, yeah, but their face is so in jiu-jitsu you have to get their face across.
Yeah.
It's basically they can't turn into you because their face is crossed. I don't know. Their neck's turned. It fucking hurts. It's just, then AJ's like, yeah, there's nothing there. But I'm like, your head's fucking that way. He's like, yeah, but there's nothing there anyways. Tyler comes up and he's like, you just need to pin your elbow to your hip and then drop your weight into their
Yeah.
face. And I'm like, oh, so I'm a purple belt. I've won a world champion. Like, I'm not bad. I'm not like amazing because the belt system, people get way better. And then there's an infinity greatness.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But I didn't even know to do side control. And then he's like, yeah, you just put your right knee on their hip. I'm like, yeah, but, and he's like, yeah, but that's just to chase them so they can't like, and I'm like, man. So I learned two things, and then my side control has been like unreal.
Instantly.
And then the next day I learned the same thing with north-south. My north-south is pretty good, but it was like not even close to that good when I just had to get my head to the, I used to just put my head in their hip. So north-south, you're at the back and you're trying to hold their hip down. And then Adam was just like, you need to put your head on the right side because to get that cross-side pressure.
Right.
And then hold that down, and then you use your hip to turn their face.
Start
just
turning
like a
the face,
control.
yeah.
I was like, man, I just been like putting pressure on them and just sitting like basically putting my hip in their face, like on their face. And
Well, I think that's the advantage of being in the States is that, especially where, coming from New York, New Jersey area where wrestling is king. And it's like, because that's fundamental wrestling is the rule of thumb is get their head off center to control their body. Because if your head is turned or off center, your body's weak. And so their cross faces, like, you just get used to getting the most brutal cross faces in your life. And you're like, oh, now I know how to do that. That makes sense.
Well, I think part of it is like, depending on this is where jiu-jitsu is crazy. This is not going to be anything but weighted vests or science. Is when, depending on how you come up, I just came up getting smashed. So I'm on the bottom of, like, just because I just progressed fast enough where like I got to go hang out with the competition crew. But that just meant I just get fucked.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't really get much chance to do some of that stuff. Even though we do it, it's just like I'm doing it, and it works on people that are worse than me.
Well, and you guys have a kind of weird setup in that, like, you, like, separate off, and like, you don't spend much time going and smashing white and blue belts to practice the things you're learning in, because, like, your guys' very select group of, like, competitors are all super high level. Like, it's not like, there's not, like, a bunch of a range.
Well, we're learning it, but then when it comes to, like, rolling time and, like, applying it, we're, like, I'm basically in a camp every fucking week.
Yeah, whereas, like, when you have more of, like, a general class, you're, like, there's a variation. So I'm going to get smashed by the brown and black belts, but then I get to go practice it on the blue belt. Of course, then I have, like, the athletic 24-year-old blue belts, and I get to practice a little bit, but I'm like, I got about 2 minutes of this round, and then it's going to get real rough.
Yeah, well, that's the other experience that we have this blue belt. Like, never goes to class, but sometimes does, just super athletic. Anyways, like, we've all learned, like, if you take it easy on them for like a second, you're done. And you can't
like because I play bottom because I'm even, the funny thing is in BJJ I'm still generally a bigger guy because it's relatively, for the most part, it has been historically a smaller guy sport coming from strongman.
Yeah.
It was like the big guy in jiu-jitsu was the middle, it was maybe a middleweight in strongman, right? So coming in, it was like, okay, I was so like being on top was like, okay, I can do this. I was like, so let me just play bottom all the time. And then you get older, and I'm way, like, my game is totally different now. It's all like half guard and pressure because I can't move. I've got asthma now, and it's like you let those young guys get on top, and you're like, oh, that was a terrible idea.
Yeah, like the same experience, except for this guy like doesn't like the pass guard. He'll probably watch this. Doesn't like the pass guard. He just likes to watch like instructionals that he can't do. Super athletic, but I always darce him, so I like showed him how to do darce and all this stuff, and now he loves the darts because he's tall and lanky. Anyways, I'm on top, and I'm like, I'm not gonna put my knee on his belly. I'm just gonna like let him do the thing we were taught. Anyways, I like kind of move my arm a little bit. He throws it across while he's on the bottom and does like one of those tire toe darces. From the
Oh, really?
And I'm like, oh, this is in deep.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna try to like flip and spaz because I'm like, I don't really want to tap right
Tap,
now.
right.
And then he like got on top, and I was like, tap. And then I was like, fuck. And I was like, I basically taught you this. I hate you. But I was in my head, I was like, this is why I told, like, because all of us know, and we all like do it every week. One of us is like,
I should not have done that.
Let him do something. And I'm like, yeah. It's like good to learn, but I was like, hey, let's go again. Right
now.
Right into it, and he was like gassed because he's squeezing. He's like, yeah, I got you. I'm like, fuck. But he's gassed now, so now he's done. But I was done.
Yeah. That's like I've been trying to get that Craig Jones escape from side control for like 3 months now, where he does the thing where he like turns perpendicular and then
Yeah.
rotates over the body. But like I just don't have the flexibility to get my hips high enough to go over, so I just get caught in it every time. I'm getting choked, and it's like I put myself in the position, and I'm like, oh, why did I do that?
Yeah.
It's the best.
But this kind of does lead to the talk though. It's like, in terms of like all this stuff looks cool, but like you can't do it. So like shut the fuck up.
Yeah, so like kind of become. I guess what I always think about, and it's funny because I mean I have like 2 clients maybe that do jiu-jitsu in any capacity, and even that they're like they kind of go over. No one's really into it except for my fighters. Like I have a couple fighters. Yeah, that's different. But one of the reasons I talk about it so much is because it is, to me, it's the most process oriented thing I've ever done, because there is no, once you get into jiu-jitsu, like once you've been doing it for a while and you're kind of trapped and like this is a lifetime thing now, you understand that there is no mountaintop. There's no end, and no matter how good you get, you're never, like, every year that you get older, you are going to get somewhat worse in terms of the hierarchy of where you are and where other people are. So you can't judge your progress even on your own progress, let alone someone else's. And I think that's like the big lesson that you get every day is like, that I think, and we come out into this like this argument about what's better. It's like, well, stop worrying about what's better. It's like, what is going to help me to move forward in this specific situation just for today? What can I learn from this today? And I think that's where, when we look at this like evidence-based discussion around these weight fests, it's like it's a whole lot of missing the forest for the trees, and then taking headlines or or the abstracts and basing your entire opinion on social media, mainly because some fitfluencer or someone with a PhD that maybe doesn't coach anybody said so. It's like, well, I think you guys need to learn to dig into the research a little bit better, because
Well, and they look at there's like 2 forests, and they're comparing one forest's trees to another forest.
Yeah.
They're like, you didn't even, you're focusing on the trees when you should be focusing on this forest over here, and fuck that forest. I'm like,
yeah.
What? You're butchering both sides of it. And what that means is that if I was to start this off, and this is kind of where I think it's funny, but my favorite, and this happens all the time between like most people's arguments, and I've probably done it too, but they're like, why would you use a weight vest when you could work out in a gym and build muscle on a strict program?
Yeah.
Those 2 things aren't even the same.
No, and it's also like, we come back to coaching. Coaching in any capacity is not about telling people what to do and saying like, hey, this is what you have to do, this is going to be the best thing for you. It's trying to figure out how to get someone to do the thing and how to get them to do the thing consistently. If someone hates going to the gym, like, it's just not going to happen. Can we find alternative activities that maybe don't have the same muscle building qualities, but they have the same health extending? And a lot of, like, we all think that everyone's intention is to, like, in people's brains, they come to you thinking, oh, I'm going to get ripped and I'm going to get jacked. And so part of what we have to do is be like, hey, the way you do that is going to be these ways that you don't want to do. So let's at least temper those expectations and be like, hey, I can be healthy, but these tools are not going to lead to this like body that you think it is. Like, and I take that, maybe with GLP-1s and steroids, like, yeah, you could probably actually get there without a whole lot of effort. Like, back when I was younger, the ideal body was Brad Pitt and Fight Club. Like, that's just skinny. Like, that's fine. You can easily get that with very little, resistance training. You just have to have you probably do body weight stuff. And that's the other thing is, like, when I lived in New York, and granted, these are very genetically gifted gentlemen, but you go into Washington Square Park and see dudes who just do pull-ups and push-ups and bodyweight squats, and they're more jacked than 90% of the fit pros out there that are spending hours in the gym every week.
Well, and that's where, like, so this all starts, so, like, there's, like, a bunch of, like, I think that there's drama on the TikTok world versus, like, influencers versus evidence-based, and it becomes, like, investors have been around for a while. Like, I think like this. I've been thinking about vests before vests were even like a thing, because like I made a joke in one of my articles, like watching Goku wear his fucking weighted gear. But this has always been a thing. So the argument is kind of always resurfaced. But now they have actual science on a lot of it, and I say actual science because like some of it doesn't study what we want to, but a lot of them are positive. And so but what a lot of the evidence-based community does is they're like, yeah, it's positive, but it's better. Other things are better. And then the TikTok is like, did you see these things? It's positive. You should use it all the time.
Right.
And I would actually probably trust the TikToks more, because at least they're doing something, like you said. They're like, they're just moving forward. Hey, this is exciting. You should do it. And they're like, yeah, I want to do it because I'm influenced. And then I feel like the evidence-based has taken the role of soul crusher, or like
gatekeeper.
What would you call it? Gatekeeper, or like you try to like essentially someone gets excited and you want to just like squash it. You're like, you're too excited. You should have thought about this. When I would like I said, I think that's coming from a negative point of view, and it's dissuading people from doing the next thing.
Which is like, yeah, like if somebody is not walking, but they get a weight vest and all of a sudden they start walking for, an hour a day because they're like influenced, and they find some like joy in that, and they find some purpose in that. Like, yeah, like that's the win. And it's always funny because it's the same people who, when someone posts something, they're like, we need to stop like inhibiting people's like, desire to get out there and do things by like telling them this is stupid. And then you do the same thing. And that's, I have a discussion with my therapist all the time. Is like, we figured out that I'm pretty like cool with a lot of things. If people have like a lack of self-awareness, that's the one thing I can't get past, and it drives me crazy. It's like, if you are acting in a manner that is in direct conflict with who you say you are, which is what happens all the time in fitness, it just makes me crazy. It makes me nuts.
I think that, like, so to me, like, that's like I don't know if it's a logic loop, but it's just like, I hate when, like, and this has been my whole life. I'm very argumentative, but like, I remember stuff, like just stupid petty bullshit.
Yeah.
Like all. I even do this to you. I make fun of people who like hold grudges, and then I totally hold grudges.
Oh yeah,
so
totally.
I am that person. Well, I get it, but like I'll remember, especially if it's stupid. I actually don't care about like mean stuff, but just like, hey, you need to do this thing, and then it's so good, and then they'll say the same thing, like you said, about someone else, even though it's kind of the same logic. It's like you literally are getting mad at someone for being exactly the same thing you are, which is what I see with this vest thing, is that, like, especially for the muscle building thing, like, so my article and this video will be after this and all this stuff, was basically like, hey, calories are burned when you wear a vest. That makes sense. Like, anyone who says otherwise is fucking stupid. And then I was like, 1 calorie a minute is a lot. Like, it is. It ends up being like, someone messaged me on Instagram and was like, so if you wear 10% weight vest, you burn 10% more calories, more or less. I'm like, yeah, actually, that's very smart.
Yeah.
No one said that. I didn't say that. So again, these things are very simple. But the building muscle thing fucking grinds my gears. Because, again, the vest study showed that they gained muscle more so than they did without wearing a vest. And it was somewhere upwards of like a good amount of muscle on a workout program that consisted of like squats, push-ups, step-ups, just like body weight, calisthenic stuff with a weight vest. And I think one of the ones was getting up and down from a chair, because it was like a elderly community. Fucking crushed it. And so they take that study, they're like, yeah, it might help a little bit, but you know lifting weights is better? And like, that wasn't the question, you fucking dumb fuck. And like, how can you take something that's good and be like, yeah, it's bad? That just doesn't make, that's the whole point of your evidence-based thing, is that this saw a positive result, but they're like, we have a bunch of other studies that show that biking on the Tour de France builds a higher muscle load in the quads than it did for this. I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because they're biking for 20 hours a week.
I mean, we can extrapolate that to like everyone in evidence-based fitness is, big irritation. Like when we go back to like vaccines, and like people will be like, the vaccine shows, that there's, there's cardiac events in young men. It's like, yes, it does, and it shows a far greater magnitude when they get COVID. So like that's that like you're using the same arguments that the people that you despise, and actually that was my whole podcast over 2 weeks ago, was about how the evidence-based community has taken on the same tactics of the influencers, and they're getting trapped by the same audience capture and the same desire for influence and power, and so they will use these same tactics to utilize their own bias rather than saying like, hey, here's context. Because at the end of the day, what do they really want? They don't really want to find the solution. They really want the personal branding, the clicks and the likes to get people to sign up for their coaching. How do you get people to sign up for your coaching? Well, you got to lift weights because I have the program for you.
Which is just jealousy. And like, this is like, I wish it would just be like transparent. I hate, and this is kind of the same thing you probably do. It's like hiding behind this label. Evidence-based means that, again, we're the gatekeepers, but we know all the evidence, and thus, like, you come to us for this information. That's what they want.
Yeah.
Right? That's what they say they want. They're like, they've labeled that. And so when people come to you and you give them fucking bad takes, and not even bad takes, but you basically manipulated the words to make something positive, negative, to dissuade the TikTok people. It's like, now we're doing layers of things that get back at these TikTok people, when really, like, it's good. Just say on the scale of good to, or bad to good to great, it's like in the middle of like moderate to bad to good. But at the same time, great. The things that are great a lot of times are reserved for elite outliers.
That's the thing.
That will actually do it. So it's like you're selling this world where Betty, that did the study, she's 60 years old and obese. If you actually look at the populations, she doesn't do anything. You put her on a strict diet. She's not. Of course, going to the gym is better. So is eating more calories.
Yeah.
And not drinking every week. Yeah. Did you know that like drinking every week is worse for you than wearing a vest? But if you just stop drinking, you wouldn't need to wear the vest. So you shouldn't do it, the vest. But Betty wants to drink and wear the vest. Like, fuck, man.
Yeah. And I think, like, kind of to the point there is that again, I think we both consider ourselves evidence-based, right? Like, it's not a slam on that. Like, again, I think the irritation comes because we are part of that community, and it's like, hey, I want to see you guys be better, rather than kind of punching down. And it's like, yeah, are the influencers, are most of them idiots? Absolutely, but they, even a broken clock is right twice a day, kind of thing. It's like, hey, they're still finding some better solutions for people. Again, it's kind of like the backlash that we saw against GLP-1s,
So, like, what I don't want is I would consider myself evidence-based for the most part. At the same time, I have a life. So I'm not, like, reading this stuff until, like, something happens, and I'll go, like, fact check. I don't want to have to, like, look at 3 studies, because that's all there was, and go read them and be like, these are the takes? I shouldn't have to, and, like, you could make an argument that I can't read research, but when the studies are this simple, the takeaways shouldn't be this stupid.
Yeah.
Maybe for the higher statistic, even the GLP-1s, like, that's like real fucking chemistry. And like there's layers and layers and layers. Yeah. You could argue you need to be a fucking pretty smart person to look at that stuff, maybe. But we're talking about putting on a vest, and so like that's what I don't like, because the GLP-1 stuff has been overtly positive. Yes. And then we take away. So this is actually the same. This is the same thing. It's like, so people are reading the research, like, did you see that they lost muscle? Okay. What was this happened in the weight vest thing. This is actually the same thing. In the weight vest study, they're like, did you know that if you wore a vest and you didn't wear a vest, you actually lost muscle? Okay. So these people are on a deficit. So same thing as a GLP-1. They basically are in a deficit because they're fucking taking drugs, and they lose weight. Well, the one group on the vest had the same diet as the one that didn't have the vest, and they didn't measure activity or anything. Anyways, the vest people like lost a bit of muscle. They were also in a bigger deficit because they were wearing a vest all fucking day.
Right.
Well, did anyone even think to look at that? They're like, no, like, it's bad. GLP-1s, well, they lost muscle, it's bad. Well, what did you monitor? Did you monitor how much they worked out, how much they ate, how much NEAT they did? No, we didn't do any of that stuff. We just monitored their weight loss. Like, well, like, there's so many things that could happen from point A to point B. It basically tells us nothing. Other than when you lose weight, you lose muscle, which we already knew. So that's all it answered. And the same people that would be like, hey, you need to be at a calorie deficit. That's the only way. Count your calories and lose weight. You know who loses muscle? Those people.
Yeah.
Too.
You know who else loses muscle? Me.
Me.
I'm like 30 pounds down because I just do more jiu-jitsu and don't lift as much. Guarantee I didn't use GLP-1s. I didn't use a weight vest. I just lost muscle because I'm doing more cardio and less lifting and eating less.
100%.
I've lost muscle. Absolutely, 100%. Guess what? Everyone who diets, for the most part, does, unless they're dieting for a bodybuilding show, using anabolics and, like, you know, working out a ton. Like, you're going to lose some muscle. That is not a net negative. If you're losing body weight because you're obese, the benefits outweigh. Now, granted, the problem becomes cyclical dieting where people gain the weight back and they end up losing. Sure, that's a problem. But that's always been a problem. That's not a new thing.
But you could argue cyclical dieting is hiring a coach, not hiring a coach, or hiring a coach, firing the coach, hiring the coach, firing the coach, or just normal diet cycles, because a lot of that stuff isn't sustainable. So you could argue that most of these coaches are actually helping people lose muscle. They're actually perpetuating, but they're like, yeah, but if they would have stayed with me and went into the gym, they wouldn't have lost any muscle. That's absolutely untrue, because they still would have lost muscle. Because you can't lose weight and just, like, maybe with anabolics. But
With anabolics. But we could even look at top tier bodybuilders. They absolutely lose muscle in prep.
And they have
absolutely lose muscle.
And they're counting calories.
And they're using like 3 grams of anabolics a week.
And they're losing, like, it's just like, man, we can't, and I get where the argument comes from. It's like, we want to be respectful of people trying to lose a lot of weight. It's like, it's probably not a good idea to lose a lot of weight without having some sort of stimulus.
Yes.
To keep muscle.
Right.
But that's to me, a stimulus to keep muscle. The vast amount of things that could do that is anything other than sitting on your ass. Mm-hmm. Where it's been sold as, you got to be in the gym. It's like, no, you don't. You know who went into the gym? No one, like, past like 150 years ago. There wasn't gyms. There might have been. Like, but like, those aren't real things. Those are made up activities.
Yes.
You just have to be active
to counter the fact that we are no longer active.
Right.
That's all it is. But it's also pretty silly to think that, you know, because let's say you go work out for an hour. Like, how much actual work of that is in the gym? Maybe 20 minutes total of actual work. So you're saying about an hour's worth of activity a week is supposed to supplement 8 hours daily of movement? That's absolutely ridiculous as well. So that's why we have to counter it with all these calorie, restriction and all the things, because we are just trying to mimic natural responses. And we had looked up that study, the one randomly I found, where it was like people were walking, like 24,000 steps a day, and their GLP-1 levels were through the roof. They couldn't even keep weight on. Right? Like, and they didn't measure muscle or anything in that study, but what they did see is that, like, these people could not eat. They could eat ad libitum, they could eat whatever they want, as much as they wanted. They could not keep weight on because their activity levels were commensurate with that of what they might have been like 100 years ago.
Well, and it's a vast, it's so different from where our society is at. Like, 24,000 steps is, like, insane, and that was the one thing that study showed. And, like, I've seen some people combat it, actually, just recently. You've probably seen his Facebook. It's like, I walk 30,000 steps a day, and, like, I still have to watch what I eat. And again, you're taking an argument where it's like, yeah, that makes sense. But
I mean,
like,
maybe I'm also like, what the fuck are you doing? If you're walking 30,000 steps a day and you have to watch what you eat, then, like, you're doing something really wrong.
My argument
like,
is,
that's hard.
I'm pretty sure his steps are off.
Yes,
but that's neither here nor there. But the point of it is like, we're using the, like, basically, if you're more, like, if we talk about reference points, if you're a participator in most of what is normal society at this point, which is sitting on your ass, has evolved to now order groceries, order Uber Eats, and just don't do anything. Like, yeah, like, anything will work. And the good thing is we should sell that. And to your point about muscle mass, like, how much are you doing in the gym? I hate the fact that I hate the gym.
Me too. I hate it now. I don't know what happened.
Because, like, my life revolved around, like, thinking that the gym was the best place in the world.
Me too.
But the gym is just a place. It's an environment. It's a community. It's a feel good. It's what do the kids call a vibe?
A vibe. Yeah,
it's just a vibe. Okay. If I was to, like, sell you the best workout program, it's whatever the vibe is. And if the vibe is like a weight vest and sitting, like, I would argue that the vibing of body weight exercises with a weight vest is much more accessible, and you'll actually accumulate more time in a week. And it proves that you can build muscle. So it's like these VO2 max things. Like, so the VO2 max argument is, hey, VO2 max is the best. But the easiest way to get VO2 max based on where you're at a lot of times is like, I think it's like 15 minutes of work once a day. Yeah. Of like just pushing VO2 max with body weight stuff, sitting up and down, going up a stair, like just doing something you can do in a room. That's all you need to do. But really, it's just a stimulus that you're calling to more and more often. It's hard to do that with the gym, mostly because of the logistics of going to the gym, having to learn the gym. The stimulus and the repeated call to that stimulus, for most people, in my opinion, isn't going to be very high unless you vibe with that. Because then
there's just not enough novelty for most people.
No.
Right, and we know that novelty drives action for most people. Like there has to be novelty, and then the entirety of evidence-based community. And the right is that novelty is kind of the enemy of progress if you are measuring progress in a linear fashion of like added weight to the bar, added sets, added reps, added muscle. But we have to also understand that like most people, yes, if most people added 10 to 15 pounds of muscle to their body, would everything else be a lot easier? Absolutely. 100%. Do we understand as professionals and having worked with thousands of people how hard it is to get someone to gain 10 to 15 pounds of muscle as a grown adult? Like, it is very difficult. And to think that that is going to be the solution across the board is kind of naive. And to kind of your point to the sitting and standing, everyone shit on the documentaries. Mike and I always talk about it because I really liked it. Was that Blue Zone doc, and they were like, oh, because they don't have burst difference, whatever. But there was one theme that I saw throughout, and we've talked about this. One of the biggest themes was that those people change postures often throughout the day. They go from squatting to sitting to standing. There's a lot of elevation change, and they tend to live a lot longer. And even from like a polyvagal lens, we know that nervous system adaptation and regulation is very dependent on posture change. Changing your posture can help you move from that sympathetic to, and again, I think so much of our behaviors are driven by being in a constant sympathetic state or an overwhelmed state, that just learning to move in those positions is going to help people regulate their nervous system, therefore regulate their emotions, therefore regulate their ability to make good decisions around food and exercise. So if they're doing better in those sit to stand tests, that tells me that they're probably going to be doing better in a lot of other areas.
Take it one step further, and this is where I actually got this idea from. I was watching sumo on.
Oh, yeah.
The show about the sumo wrestlers. It's fucking one of the best shows I've ever seen, actually.
I gotta watch that.
Honestly, it's actually one of the best shows I've ever seen. Luke put me on it from our gym. He's like, it's actually like that there. I've been there, and I'm like, and then I watched it, like, holy fuck. Anyways, these like very fat people, fat athletes.
What's their BMI? It's like 45 or something.
And they're some of the most unreal athletes if you look at adventures. But their whole life revolves around sitting on the floor, like the Japanese, right? So Japanese culture, low sitting tables, beds on the floor, no mattresses, all that shit. But these like, very big people can like get in these positions on the ground that are crazy. And I was like, man, this is like crazy. Maybe there's something to this. I can't do that. This is probably why jiu-jitsu is good for a lot of reasons too.
Yeah.
But so that kind of lined up with Kelly Surratt and his wife's book. I don't know. It's like Born to Move. One of their newest one. Anyways.
Yeah.
I don't want to say half their book, but let's just say a quarter of the book is like sitting on the ground to be able to then get up without using your hands.
Yeah.
And there's a process to that. But it's like, what are we selling when we're doing workout programs if we look at evidence-based community? Just most fitness professionals, you need to get in the gym. Well, I don't even know if they know what they're selling. As we age, like again, posture changes. This is what you need in your life. Being able to get up and off the ground. But it's been kind of reduced to get up and off a chair, which actually isn't helpful. If you fall, you need to be able to get the fuck up off the ground, from the ground. And so a lot of these resting postures that we evolve from are all like sitting on the ground resting position. And we lose that. And so we're not even training that. The Born to Move book is like literally, like I said, like a quarter of the book is like, how do you scale to build it up? I can't do that. I still can't do that. Pretty close, but like I'm strong in other areas, so you could argue getting to the gym helps me push up explosively and get up, but that's a dumb way of doing it and a very, very expensive time venture.
Yes.
Gain 2 pounds of muscle a year to do that, very costly. And so we're not even selling the right thing, but in those populations, like you said, a lot of what they're doing is they're just doing normal human stuff from designed human evolution. Like you said, walking, elevation change. Some of them sit, talk, and converse, move to go talk to someone. Basically, they don't live kind of the standards of, and they're all older people who didn't grow up in our world. When I say our world, I'm thinking tech, sitting, ordering food. We've lost that. Like, that's what I say when I look at that. Especially, I remember there's that one little Italian guy. Do you remember that guy?
Yeah.
He's just like walking. He's like, I have 2 glasses of wine a day, one in the afternoon and one at night when I'm talking to my friends. Yeah. And he's just fucking crushing, just shuffling. But that dude he's not in the gym. He's not in the gym influencer, and well, he doesn't have a birth certificate. Did you know that if he was in the gym, he'd gain more muscle? I'm like, man, that guy fucking walks, and he's walking uphill. That shit hard. He's on bricks and slippery and dangerous.
Dude, when we, our we go to Europe a lot, obviously. In our honeymoon, we went to Italy, and we stayed with our friends at this villa in this little town in Tuscany. And every morning, because a cappuccino in Italy is, I don't understand how a 50-cent cappuccino is so much different there than the one. It's incredible. But like every morning we would wake up and we go to the coffee shop. And again, we had a coffee maker there. We could do a stovetop, but it wasn't the same. So we go up and get a coffee every morning. And it's like you get to the top, like to where the coffee shop is from the villa. It's like, it's not far, but the elevation is so high. You get up there and you're like, and you're like and you watch these 85-year-old women just cruising past you up these little steps, and you're like, whoa. But it's a reminder that the adaptations of doing that daily provide so much more benefit than the intensity of going in. And my wife and I both spend a lot of time in the gym and doing all the things, and it was like, that's still brutal for us because we don't have that constant reinforcement of doing this thing all the time.
It's not enough stimulus. Like,
no.
And it can be, but you could argue the cost and the intensity could be a net negative. Like, the cost of building that much muscle is like,
it's just in actual food. Like, we talked about this, Ben. We were like, the amount of money we spend on food to see a 1% change per year is absolutely not a good return on investment. It's just what we enjoy.
It was just what we enjoy. Like, that's the thing. That's the vibe we get. It's just like, I'm hot. I'm big on endurance running. I love that culture. Anyways, a lot of what they do to sustain anything over, like, even a marathon, but like over marathon distances or even like 100-mile training weeks, is the amount of food they need to eat, but amount of the food they need to eat peri-workout. So they're basically training their gut to turn over food like crazy, and whatever that choice of food or calories is, that's probably a net negative on the gut, right? Because you're essentially like stressing that system, and you get an adaptation to that, but like longevity-wise, it's probably like taking years off your life.
Probably.
And, right? And that's like, but is that better?
Right. And so for me, the argument is always, it's like my wife, every time I come home from jiu-jitsu and like I can't move my arm or I'm like walking funny, because like, let's be honest, I do not move well throughout the day. Like, I'm banged up, and a lot of that is probably because I was undersized. I put on a ton of weight in my 30s, got really strong really fast, and just did not have the connective tissue to probably hold up to that. Plus, I also have like, I didn't realize I had scoliosis until I got my back tattooed. My tattoo artist was like, dude, you're, which is not great when you spend a lot of time deadlifting and squatting. But, so like, I'll come home and I'm like, here's the deal. Like, this might actually reduce my quality of life when I'm older, but you get to live with me, to try to live with me if I'm not doing this thing, because I'm not going to be a great person to be around. Like, I know that. This is a very important thing. So it's like a quality of life. What's the return for you? Yeah, if maybe it takes a few years off your life, but you live a better time during that, that's the trade-off.
Well, and that's kind of like, not even transition into our book, whatever we end up calling it. I still think Get Fluxed is the right way to go with that. But we'll see. But the point of it is a lot of the strategies is actually, I wouldn't even say it's the best ever, like in terms of like, hey, evolutionarily this is what people did, but it's a solution to the environment people are in now, right? Because we look at the blue zone, like a lot of them were in different environments, and then like very specific ones, very specific, that are kind of like they're like places, they're holes in the wall. They don't really exist anymore. Like, we exist here, and we'll say here, Western society, very different than Europe, but still very similar stuff, tech, all that stuff. Is that, again, a lot of the strategies kind of mimic what that stuff is while working with more food, but it's like not necessarily low intensity, but it kind of is. It's like recoverable stuff, right? That's easy to add in and get that stimulus, because the biggest thing is the stimulus. Whatever that is needs to be constant enough to get an adaptation. And again, this is where I hate saying, hey, the gym isn't good, but I don't think the gym's enough for most people unless you vibe check it. And most people's vibe checks, we can't rely on those.
Which again, with the younger generation, I do think, like, as annoying as they are, as the TikTok kids coming in with their, like, tripods into the gym, the advantage is that it's created, like you said, about, like, kids want to go into the gym now rather than go out drinking, which was my growing up. Like, it's like, what do you want to do for fun? Well, I want to go in a field, start a bonfire, and get hammered. Whereas these kids are like, I want to go to the gym. I mean, like, these kids I've got, like, them coaching in jiu-jitsu, these high school kids, these kids are all fucking jacked, dude. Like, I mean, I'm like looking at these 17-year-old kids, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, and they're not big yet because they haven't, like, hit that, but, like, they're, like, extraordinarily muscular. And if they stay with this kind of, regimen, the thing is, they might not ever get big because we're going to keep them weight class. Because if they want to fight, like, professionally, it's like, hey, you actually don't want to be that big. Like, if you're like when I was, at 5'8" at 215, that is a really terrible size to be if you want to fight. Like, that's not a good place.
That's why I like these sports though. It's like we think we're making fun of gatekeepers and evidence based, like talking all this like trash on this. Like, people in real sports, they don't give a fuck though.
Nope.
Like, that's stupid. If you want to be good at this, all that stuff is dumb. Fuck all those other people.
I still come back to this interview I heard with Marshawn Lynch, and these guys are like, they're like, oh, so like, what are your workouts like? He's like, I don't really work out. Like, okay, well, when you were playing, what was your workouts like? He's like, well, we had like team workouts, so like twice a week I might go in and like stretch a little bit, but like that's about it. And you're like, this dude is an absolute savage, like 230 or whatever, 240 running over linebackers, and the dude didn't even lift during the season. I don't even know if he lifted off season, because off season was probably just getting shit fixed, like he was doing PT maybe.
Well, fuck. We can't even rely on, like, that was another thing with, like, a lot of the VO2 max stuff is, like, a lot of it's based on genetics.
Yeah.
And so, like, if we're, this is why, like, I don't like pushing things. Because, like, if I was to look at, if we scale where, like, we'll use the gym lifting or whatever as a base, because that's kind of what is socially acceptable and probably would get you hung if you say working out's dumb. Okay, the vibe check needs to be there for whatever exercise he wants to do at whatever frequency you want to do, and you're going to do it. Let's just have a catch-all. This is what you're going to do. Whatever you want, vibe check it. After that, that's where the real work begins. Because I would argue that none of that stuff matters. Like, it does a little bit, but it matters only as much as they're going to do it. And so thus we put it in a bucket of do it as much as you're going to do it. Do whatever the fuck you want to do. Now let's get to where the real stimulus is. The one that's going to, you don't even need to vibe check it to some extent, but you need to get basically movement or activity or something else at a high enough frequency to see a result.
Yes.
And that usually ends up being steps. But, like, you got to do stuff. Otherwise, like, that is the one thing where I can, like, be those evidence-based people that we hate to be like, oh, if you don't do that, you're probably fucked. Because your vibe check is never going to be at the frequency enough needed for what they're selling, unless you want to be them, which honestly you don't, because if you did, you wouldn't have been on Instagram watching them.
Well, yeah, it's like my buddy Kier, posted something. He was walking with a weight vest, and he was a rugby coach for a long time, coached American football, strength and conditioning. Now he's focused on combat sports because he does jiu-jitsu like we do, and he's saying, like, most fighters, he's like, a weighted weight vest for most of you guys is going to get you in all the zone 1 work you need. You probably don't need a lot of zone 2 work because you're getting that in your training. You're getting zone 2, you're getting some zone 3, some zone 4, some zone 5. You probably need to add a little bit of that high intensity stuff, into your week just to make sure you're hitting those top qualities, especially as you get better and you don't get into those top levels as much. Or you need to up your the training intensity so you're hitting that in your training. But, like, so for a jiu-jitsu athlete, if that weight vest is getting into the zone 1 territory, it's definitely going to probably get most people into that zone 2 category, right? And they're not doing much of that zone 2 work. They all think they are, right? But like, they're like, it's not happening. And as much as my Whoop, I don't really use it to its capabilities, it does, like, at least say, like, here's where your heart rate looks like in your day-to-day. And, for me, it's like, I I feel like jiu-jitsu is all zone 4, zone 5. Most of my time is zone 1, zone 2, and then a little bit of zone 3, and then I might touch on zone 4, zone 5 if it's a really intense session. But people are confused about what the work looks like.
Well, it's not much work, and I think that's like why I don't like exercise. It's just not much work. Like, and you can argue that like the people like this is where they'll use like, well, wrestling practice is actually a lot different than jiu-jitsu practice.
Yes, very different.
Like it's just a different activity, just same as biking or distance running. If we put those in a bucket of vibe checks, they're going to have a different cost, right? Like we talk about that in the book, like with metabolic equivalent scores, but just like they're accumulating activity, whatever number that is. The more you can get there, the great.
Yes.
But it's like you have to be inspired or motivated.
Yeah.
But relying on discipline, sure, whatever. But like whatever that is, you're on a scale of like 100 calories a day to 1,000 maybe.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like so, like not a lot. When we talk about everything else, and this is NEAT, non-exercise activity, whatever. All the other shit is like it can account for a lot more if you let it, but that's what's dropped for most people.
Yes.
So it like triple that. I want to say, like, if we look at like the max numbers, triple to, is it like 11% max? Anyways, whatever. A lot more than exercise. So the vibe check thing is most people are trying to push the exercise, where the leverage point on that is not strong enough for me to be like, just do that as the sole thing. Like that doesn't make sense unless they're like really, really, really into it. But that's the first rung. Always.
Which observationally, as anyone who's worked with a lot of clients can tell you, we've all worked with those clients who exercise 5 times a week and can't manage their weight because their caloric intake is too high, partially because their hunger signaling goes up due to the exercise, and partially because their metabolic rate actually decreases because of the exercise, because their NEAT will reduce. And especially in high-intensity exercise, things like CrossFit or Orange Theory, people that go, they think that they had this intense hour-long workout. They had a really intense 10-minute workout that was, bookended by 50 minutes of low-level activity. In the grand scheme of things, is not that high. Yet the threat to the system, because of the intensity, is so high that your body goes, okay, we need to now conserve energy. And, the energy conservation thing gets argued, and sure, I think it probably is a little overblown. But at the same time, we see the research that when people exercise, they tend to burn less calories than on days that they don't exercise.
Right. And that's that. Again, we can use it to sell walking, but it's like, what I don't want is someone to believe that they have to go 5 times a week. I want them to go as many times of the week as they want to.
Yeah.
Like if you're like, listen, I love that style of training. Like it makes me fucking scratches that itch. That's where I'm like, yeah, 100%.
Boom.
If it's anything other than that, I like really don't care, because you can fulfill the difference with walking. Now, are they going to be inspired to walk or whatever, play with their kids or whatever? Maybe, maybe not. But like, I would rather that be the messaging of you have to do this, more so because I don't believe that they're going to reduce their diet long term. That might be my pessimist to me, but like that's the battle we're fighting, is like, hey, well, people have to reduce calories and control what to eat. Yeah, that has been the message for fucking forever. Like from where I can remember. And how is that going? Instead, they're like, we're going to make it easier for you to get food. Since COVID, it's super easy to get food.
Yeah.
The easiest. Now that instead of Chinese and pizza is the only thing delivery, it's everything. But they have to reduce calories. I 100% think they should reduce calories.
Yes.
Again, not the first rung that I'm going to be like, you have to do that. If I'm going to say you have to do this, like, listen, I have a gun. I'm going to shoot you. Unless you do this thing, it's not going to be the gym or it's not going to be food. Because I don't believe that they're going to do it. They're going to take the bullet at some point. Mm-hmm. I don't think that they're going to do it with walking. I just don't. I don't think anyone's going to walk so much that they're going to be like, kill me now.
Yeah.
Because I believe with the other two, they will. I believe that.
And I think just that general activity piece. Obviously, I jump on the nervous system stuff so much, but I think because people are so dysregulated with their nervous systems, is that they don't have the biological desire to be active. And you brought up kids, so obviously you have kids, so you're at playground stuff. I have the biggest playground in our county, our area, is right near my house, so I drive by it every day. And I look and I see parents, and they're all sitting on the benches while their kids are playing. And it's like, that to me is a disconnect between their biology and their psychology, because biologically you would be out there playing, but they're so stressed or whatever, and they just need that moment to sit. when they could, the activity level that would change if they were just out there actively playing with their kids alone would, I think, because what is it? You're at the playground for like 2 hours, right? Like, can you imagine the change if they were just standing up and doing stuff?
Well, then that's where it's like we can argue about time and all that stuff. I just believe people have more time. And like, well, they should focus on the kitchen. It's just this battle between the gym and food and general activity. And it's just like the thing that needs to move in terms of those things is the thing they're going to do, right? And that's the thing that they're going to be inspired to do. So I feel like even if we go back to the beginning of the argument, dissuading them from one thing because this is better, horrible idea. The TikToker influencers, honestly, like, are they selling that crazy of stuff? I haven't seen anything that crazy. I mean, there's some, like, detoxes and all that stuff, but I mean, like, honestly, it's more action than most things. But it's just, I don't believe that the needle has been moved on food in any of these strategies.
It's gone the opposite direction.
It's going the opposite. And again, no one's really, some of the, I guess the real reason why I'm mad about the weight vest argument is that it's honestly a movement. Like, so they're telling them to just do stuff. They didn't even say you have to go to the gym. They're just like, get on the vest and like move around. Like, that's the message. That's honestly probably the message most people need to hear.
Yeah.
Just get up with your fucking ass and off your cell phone. Honestly, that will solve most problems. Not all of them, but a big problem.
Yeah, and we, again, we come back to like the fitness community or the evidence-based community often wants to lean into this idea of like, here's the mechanism that works best. And it's like, again, that is not the problem we have. It's implementation is the problem we have. And how do you, so, I have a conversation with a high-powered, attorney or someone who works, at a high level at a place. And I'm like, can we get a 15-minute walk in after lunch? Well, when I leave my desk, and so like, how do I get them to leave their desk to go for a walk? I say, hey, let me get you this. If you do this and you find that your productivity after that walk improves, would you be more likely to take that walk? And they're like, well, absolutely. I was like, you'll get more done. So if we can reframe these things not as a time cost, but a time investment in what's important to them, because let's be honest, is the society we live in right now is that, especially if you work with high performers, they don't want to take time to do something that they don't see translate into their paycheck. Right. And if I'm like, this can actually translate you into doing a better job at what your identity is wrapped up around, can you then find the time? Absolutely. Because if you said to them, hey, you need to do this thing at work every morning before you start in order to make sure your team's in order and that you're going to see better results from your team, they would do that every single day. But they're only looking at that from the lens of time away from my desk means I'm going to be less productive.
Right, and the barrier to entry, and I think this is the argument, because this is the same argument that the gym people are doing. Hey, like, you build muscle, it make you better at all this stuff. I think the barrier to entry is so much smaller. You know why? Because everyone knows how to walk, minus a few people who can't walk.
Right, which of course then you get the people like, well, we're negating the people who are ambulatory. It's okay, fine, yes, that's not what I'm talking
you know
to.
What? Honestly, you want the real answer? Like, they wouldn't have survived. So if we all go back to where I want people to go back to, they're dead anyways. So. Also,
I have a lot of friends who've been in wheelchairs who are like the most jacked people because they do everything that they have is like upper body based. Like
because they know what they're missing.
Yeah.
Their legs were taken away. So like, they understand. They're like, you guys are like fucking, you guys aren't utilizing the God-given gift of being able to move.
Yeah.
So they understand what they're missing. I think most people don't understand. But the barrier to entry is you just get up and walk. Like, is that the most sexiest? No. Again, the weight vest, my article, burns more calories, whatever. I think it's great. But then, like, you'll ruin your posture. It's like, well, you'll ruin your posture a lot less sitting down, than sitting down. But there's that. But I think, like, again, I think it has all the benefits of working out for the most part, other than a massive amount of muscle. But it's an investment that I think can clear a vibe check for most people. Even if it doesn't, it's easy enough to do that I don't think that you get a lot of pushback. Especially if depending on how you bring it. You're going to get pushback, but I mean, you know what's a lot of pushback? Having to tell someone they have to find a gym they like, learn how to work out, find a trainer. But there's like so many things. Honestly, I even remember the first time I went to the gym. The only reason why I knew what the gym was and how to do it is because I read magazines. I'm like, yeah, you fucking bench press and do arms.
Yeah.
Like, I knew how to do that because I'm a dude.
Yeah.
But
and grew up in an era where that was like a thing. Like that was like, you read the magazines, you saw that, and you played. And if you played sports, you knew that like in order to play sports, the guys who play sports are big and strong. So I need to do the things that they're doing.
Yeah, like I wanted to do it, but
Yeah.
like honestly, like no one wants to do that. Like not no one, but like I mean, most people they look at a gym and they're like, "What the fuck is this?" And like honestly, the machines are so crazy now. Like I would agree with them.
And the fact that you and I, who are people who built our identities at one point in our lives around lifting weights, now also don't want to do it. Like I only work out because I absolutely have to maintain joint integrity and have some, and let's be honest, I do want to look good with my shirt off or as good as I can without putting in as much work as I used to. And jiu-jitsu will take you so far, but it's only going to do so much, as you get better. Unfortunately, like there's that thing of like, purple belt, you go white through purple belt, you're in really good shape, and then brown belt, you put on like 30 pounds because you just get really good and efficient.
Yeah, like anything. Like,
Yeah,
I think that's the other part.
And that's running, right? Like that's one of the drawbacks of running is like you're going to get more efficient in that time, and so an hour run becomes less effective as a caloric burn methodology as you get better at it. And it's like now I kind of think honestly, if there would be an activity that everyone could do, again, there's a lot of barriers here, but swimming, because it is so brutal. Like it hits and it teaches you how to breathe. I mean,
like the cost of any of these things like that are conditioning wise, like so like I've come full circle, like, and I don't think I've ever said running was bad. Like, I honestly know it's not. I played football, like, but I could have been like, the gym's probably better at some point. But now if I look at like, it's gotten to the point where we can't talk about caloric expenditure because we're like, well, we're creating disordered relationship with exercise. Not that they don't do that with food, right? That would never happen. But it's like if we look at caloric burn for anything, like there's swimming, running, and again, the walking doesn't even make that list. That's why like I hate selling it. But to your point is like I've changed my mind to the point where if you're gonna get more activity, it's actually anything that you can do, zone 2 or zone 3, or anything to do conditioning wise, which would kill your gains, that is probably the number one option if you can control your diet, which is where the caveat is. Right, because again, your mental cost of what you need to recover is a lot more than what you actually need, which is hard for most people to do, especially when they have food available. But man, burning calories, like I started running again.
Yeah.
Honestly, with my diet the way it is, like I'm dropping weight.
Yeah.
My expenditure is up through the roof.
Yeah.
Like so, actually, that's the number one. The gym isn't even the number one, in my opinion. Like you're not going to lose that much muscle running. Some people do, but I mean, like honestly, it's a net positive. Because they know how to move their body.
Yeah, and we talk about like that. Like I don't watch what I eat at all. Now, granted, I have such ingrained habits that and I'm so routine that it in a way I do technically watch what I eat. But I end up having to eat like cookies and stuff because my day is so around. Like my Tuesdays are Monday I do jiu-jitsu Monday through Thursday generally, and sometimes I'll do a kickboxing Friday morning. But then on Tuesdays, I'm doing jiu-jitsu at 6 a.m., coming home, I might do a tiny little workout, like usually just mobility stuff or whatever. But then I'm going to go back, I'm going to coach a jiu-jitsu class, and then I'm going to do Muay Thai afterwards. So the just sheer amount of volume I'm putting in and time-wise, that takes away from the time that I'm eating, right? And I have to drink, like carbs during my workouts just to be able to recover because I'm old and, I sweat a lot. And so, like, just the sheer volume of time put in means that I don't really have to pay attention. I mean, if I want to get, like, a six-pack and be shredded or something, sure, but in order to just maintain a decent body composition, I don't have to do very much.
Well, and that's where, like, where I see the gym, so, like, and this is where it's been gatekeeped, is that the gym ends up becoming, depends on what your vibe checked at, what your vibe is. At some point, if you're crazy enough to do something enough, you're going to need to support it with some muscle building. More so because we can support unnatural amounts of these specific activities that we couldn't when we evolved for, because they didn't exist, but now we can do it because we have food, we have time, we have shelter, all this stuff. You can put a massive amount of time into biking or running or jiu-jitsu or whatever. And the byproduct of that is at a certain point, you're going to need to support that for injury prevention in some form, because you're going to lose something. You basically lose muscle, but you get these weird movements and stuff, so you need to bolster that the opposite with muscle. If lifting becomes a byproduct of needing to sustain more of that vibe check activity, that's where I see it fitting the most in. you could say that bodybuilding is that. At some point,
Yeah,
you need to put on
100%.
more muscle, right? Because that's the fucking sport. So you have to work out more, right? That's where its practicality is. So again, if we're looking at people wanting to survive longer and be able to get off and off the floor, which is what everyone's selling, as you age, you're gonna lose muscle, then like they need to structure which thing that they're gonna do activity-wise, and then just use the gym to support that. And if it's just to walk, if it's just to get up and off the ground, which is what they're selling it for, you know, it's very specific to that. Walking, getting up and off the chair with a weight vest. Like,
I mean, shit, gardening.
Gardening.
Pick up
like
gardening.
How much,
Go
no one's
weed
gonna
your
garden
garden.
that much that they need to work out, but that's still an activity.
Right. Well, and more from a postural standpoint, right? Because if you're gardening, you're going to be down getting in weeds, and you see one of the things that you go walk around your neighborhood and look at the old ladies who are into gardening, right? They're all moving around way better than the ladies who are, who aren't doing that, right? Like I remember my grandmother. I mean, I have pretty good genetics. Is like the side that quits, that doesn't. Well, actually, my one grandmother drank till she died. 96, smoked cigarettes, did all the things, but she was very active, and she actually ate very little. Like she was a very, but I think about too is you remember the memes and things that were going around where it was like, do this thing, women can do it, but men can't, and you see all the guys like fall on their face. So my wife's like, oh, I gotta try this, and she did it, and then I went to do it, and I was like, yeah, this is no problem. I was like, my activities of what I do every day is controlling my body in weird positions. Like this is what I do. Like this is easy, and it's like, are we able to put ourselves into those positions? So is this test really about? A lot of it I think is just leverages of when women have a greater mass on their hips and they have less upper body weight, so that's why they don't fall down. But if you're a guy who has practiced being in these positions, like all of a sudden you're like, yeah, that's not a big deal. I know how to manipulate my center of balance in order to stay upright or to stay, parallel to the floor. But I think that is that postural change of you're working in different postures, and jiu-jitsu is constantly, now granted, my hips are screwed up and my back is screwed up because I'm going to be pushed into postures that are not natural.
It's like it forced you to take on alternative
compensations
stuff and alternative methods to figure that out.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, in most strategies that work, so the things that we sell that work, right? You need to diet and you need to exercise in the gym. Like those would be like the two big ones. You have to do that. The only times I've ever seen those stick is when they're a byproduct of pushing the thing that they're vibing the most with.
Yes.
Other than that, it will never work. I would put my whole career on that. Unless you're a crazy autistic person like ourselves who can count and count and count, and that would be our purpose, is just proving everyone wrong that it would work. 100% could work.
Yeah.
But generally, it's not going to work unless it's a byproduct. And so, again, this is why I don't trust that people are going to diet long term. I would rather them fill that with, if we're looking at things that they don't vibe with, so anything that isn't something that they like, right? And we could argue that that's the gym and that's dieting. I don't think they're going to do any of those unless they fulfill their vibe check. So walking and general activity of whatever in enough volume to fight how much that they're going to eat in their environment, I think is probably the number one thing that they should do. More so they can have enough, I guess, leeway with the thing that they're going to do to then earn themselves enough time to stay in it to get a byproduct of dieting or exercising. I don't think it happens without it because they're just going to fail. Again, this is my negative aspect, but it's proven time and time again. No one's going to actually lose weight long term in our environment. So they have to be able to vibe check something. And unless we get them there, we might as well attenuate the fact that they're going to eat a fuckload of food. So they need to do a lot more general activity that has nothing to do with vibes, just like walking.
Well, we can even extrapolate this to the concerns that Fit Pros have about GLP-1s, and that is that I've seen clients who worked out all the time because that was their obsession, and you realize why they worked out is because they were always trying to lose weight. They take GLP-1s, and now they don't really care about the working out part, and so you start to realize that like the intentions have always been wrong. And again, when we focus on strictly on weight loss, on body composition, the intentionality becomes disordered, not because those things cause it, but because their intentionality has never been about health. It's never been about moving better. It's really about a visual acceptance to other people. Right. And the thing is that what sports does is it takes away that concern and puts the concern into being better at this thing. And all of a sudden, like you said, the vibe check then gives them that internalized motivation to do the other things on their own. They'll go into the gym.
No, this isn't an activity. So an activity that you like and have purpose and like fucking love isn't losing weight. That's not a thing.
No.
Like, you'll never, like, I don't think anyone has ever, like, that's called anorexia. Or bulimia.
Yes,
Like,
that's an obsession. That's a disorder.
But it's not, like, it's a disorder.
Yeah.
Like, it's a disorder because you'll die. But it will never work without it, because that's not a real thing. Like, we don't grow up being like, yeah, I can't wait to just, like, diet and lose weight. Like, that's my God, I'm gonna grow up to be a diet weight loss person. Like, it's never happened. And so, like, but like, for real. And so that's where it's just like, I don't know. Like, I think that we can push those things, but it's like GLP-1 actually would fit into, honestly, just as good as our walking argument, in my opinion. I think they actually go well together.
But again, that study showed that it was the same results.
Right, you need a non-vibe checked, purposeful thing to push expenditure because our intake's so high just naturally. Yeah. Or you could just do GLP-1, which just makes you hate food. Right? Yeah. Which it effectively does the same thing. You could basically sit on your ass and still lose weight.
Yes.
Which again would probably not help your purpose thing, right? So the people the people who don't lose muscle and who get the most out of it are someone who like are doing things that they like to do anyways, and losing weight just helps them. And they could do it easily, because if they focused on trying to get to the point where they like something enough to diet really hard to lean out, again, that's top tier.
It's a very small percentage of people.
And you have to like something a lot to do
that.
Right? And so those are the people who see success. I like this so much, I'm going to fucking get lean so I can do better at a competition. Those people, those all stick. If not, I think you should take GLP-1s or walk or do both.
And again, we can come back to the argument against GLP-1s being that it seems they operate on a mechanism that it is not necessarily a weight loss drug. It's an anti-craving drug. It seems to be, and again, the GLP-1 increase seems to decrease cravings across the board. Now, the downside of that is if you are a fitness person and you have like that mild obsession with it, it might kill that desire to do that thing as well. And so you might end up seeing negative results in that aspect. So, and so my thing is like, again, it's not diametrically opposed, but it's like, okay, can we keep up with this? Maybe, try to stick to the lower doses of the GLP-1s while driving the, behavioral adaptations we want to make sure that we are doing these things of resistance training. Again, because if you are taking GLP-1s, I think that resistance training might actually be even more important due to the fact that you are going to potentially see muscle loss.
100%.
And again, that resistance training could be body weight exercises with a weight vest. That's totally fine, because most people using their body weight, especially if you're overweight, is going to be a legitimate stimulus.
If you look at the high flux book that we have, but like I go over a thing called the hunger curve, but anyways, this kind of goes over the Bengali study. But basically, your hunger ratings are super high if you're inactive, right? They're also super high if you're super active. They scale up with activity. Basically, if you run a lot, you're going to have a higher hunger rating. Weirdly, the higher activity rating people have the same hunger as the low activity rating people. And it was whatever. That's neither here nor there. But the point of it is if we can drive activity, right, to meet those hunger levels and get to the point where we're doing so much activity that we can basically outwork a bad diet, that's the sweet spot. That's very hard to get to, but it's actually not that hard to get to if you're smart. GLP-1s kind of do that.
Yes.
Right? Because they lower the requirement of that hunger anywhere on the curve, so that you can experience what it's like to have this cost of losing muscle if you don't eat more.
Yes.
Right? Because that's usually what happens. They lose weight too fast for how much they're doing, and they need to eat more. That experience, if you can get there sans GLP-1s, or even with GLP-1s, is such a mind fuck, because it gets to the point where you have to eat, or you're going to under-recover, and usually get into red S for the people who are like endurance runners or super, super high activity people or high intensity people. They drop to that exercise cap that is talked about in burn because they're underfed. Well, that's a good problem to have. That's the problem we want people to have, because now they have to participate in the dumb shit that they naturally participate in, right? That's what I want, because if we rely on them to do it any other way, they're just going to overeat their activity levels because they're participating in it. So that's where it's like GLP-1s are fucking awesome. I actually want them to lose muscle, because they get to the point where if they have a coach or someone like, you better fucking eat more.
Yeah.
Or you're going to lose muscle. They're like, yeah, but I can't. It's like, yeah, okay, we got you. You now understand.
Now you get it.
That like food is the driver, but when you have no desire for it, it fucking sucks. Well, that's good.
Yeah. And that's the one thing that most fitness people have gone through is everyone has done a dedicated bulk, and we I always joke about, like, when we went to Costa Rica and then came back and COVID had hit, like you and I would like send each other pictures of like the highest calorie meal we could eat, and neither one of us could gain weight at that point. Like eating like 5,000 calories a day, trying not to walk, like doing nothing, and couldn't gain weight. And then COVID hit, and we both like started being like, okay, activity levels started dropping, and then all of a sudden it was like, all right, maybe I'm not like going to be eating as much. And I remember the first week that both of us were like, all right, I'm going to drop my calories to like 3,000 a day. And both of us are just like crying, like, oh my God, I'm so hungry. I'm dying. Like, what's going on? And it's like 3,000 calories a day.
Well, because our brains don't operate on like restriction that well.
Right.
Like, it's almost like a mind fuck where if you can, we know the opposite experience. So I understand logically now, like how this works. It's like you can get to a point where you need to eat or you'll like lose. And it's like, that's a good spot to have. But it's also a good spot to have to understand the restriction element. Everyone gets that part. Hey, take away food. I'm very hungry. I hate my life. This sucks. How do I do this forever? Like, you can't live there. And you know what doesn't get better? That. Ever. Right. If you're in a deficit, like that's usually when you're counting calories, right? You're in that psychological deficit, regardless if you're physiologically in it, because you're focusing on it all the time. That never gets better. Never gets better. It has, like, I don't think that I could find one person where they're like, yeah, the more I counted and the longer I stayed in the deficit, the less it mattered. Like, they feel it. It's just the people who can stay there longer are the ones who can eat shit and enjoy it. They've convinced that the process is the way, and like they kind of like they did some like David Goggins stuff, but to rely on that, I just don't think most people are going to do that.
And you have to be a person who is like, again, this because this is my focus. My obsession right now is obviously nervous system regulation, and that is when we're in a dysregulated nervous system state, we are not going to be able to even regulate our choices around food because we are looking for safety. We are looking for getting to a place that makes us feel better in that moment. And when you add the stressors of counting, of dieting, of a myopic focus on this one thing, then you're further keeping yourself out of that like calm, regulated, playful state, and therefore you're going to continue to make these decisions. Then you're going to be like, oh, well, I made a shitty food decision. Now I need to go stress my body more by working out, and then it's this anxiety loop, and we just stay in it constantly. Is it any wonder that the only escape is food? And then the people who we see success with, a lot of times their escape is they change that focus and that myopic obsession into working out, and it becomes, oh, wow, well, yeah, I have to work out 4 hours a day in order to maintain this. And it's like, all right, well, that's also probably not going to stick because at some point your body is going to reject that amount of work. Like unless you're doing it in a way.
Yeah, unless you like it. Like the only people that have been able to see do that are people like us who are like, well, I could go to like jiu-jitsu all day.
Well, we joke about it all the time is like you always joke about the guys like me who are ex-drug addicts and alcoholics all do really well with it because it's like, hey, this staves off this other thing that I don't want to come back. Like, and so the fitness is just a byproduct of that. You
have to be psychotic to do
a little bit.
To do something that isn't, like if it was walking, it's like, I just don't think walking creeps into like addict territory.
No.
Addicts don't like think walking's cool. You know?
No, because it's not intense.
Right.
You need that intensity in order to feel like that's a trade-off.
To rely on something that intense in time, I guess you would put it like delayed gratification. Anything where it's like delayed gratification, it's going to take a long time to build and you're going to suffer and do all that stuff. Yeah. That is the gym. I don't care how anyone wants to sell it. You don't build muscle overnight.
No.
It sucks. It takes a long time.
So
you're never going to enjoy it. You're never going to see, especially if you're already fat, you're not going to see most of those gains for a long time.
Right.
If at all. And then when you do see them, you're going to be like, I'm so skinny. It looks smaller. Like, yeah, you are smaller.
Yeah.
Drastically smaller. Your muscles actually were never that big. So, like, it's going to take you 10 years from now to look the way you think that you should look. So anyways, that, you know who likes that stuff? Addicts. They do really well. Most people aren't that. So it's just like, that's what we're going to sell them. And that's where, again, I think that you can't rely on that. You just can't rely on it. And that's why I don't like the messaging. I think it's actually like, sure, if you
I agree. Yeah.
I agree 100%. It's a great way of doing it. I just don't think most people are going to do it. You know how I know? Because they're not doing it.
And because we've worked with a huge cross-section of Gen Pop people, you know, like when you've seen all of it and you're like, and I, you know, I'll always say is like, yes, have I had clients lose 100, 200 pounds? Absolutely. Have I had their family members or them contact me years later and be like, I want to work with you again because, you know, I lost this weight. It's all come back. It's worse now. I've tried the other coaches and I realized that the way I got there, I can't do anymore. I can't do that again. That was a once in a lifetime thing, and
CrossFit
we
did
need
all
to
the
now.
things.
Yeah,
CrossFit got people enjoying. Like, they wanted to do it. Like, it vibe checked completely everyone doing it. But in order to stay in CrossFit long term, most people, there's so many dead bodies on the side of the road.
Yep.
Because in order to stay in it, the amount of recovery costs you need, the amount of technique you need. Like,
well,
there's a lot
that's
of
the
people who do it.
problem, right?
It's just too much for most people to do, even though it checks the box of, like, they're going to watch their diet and all this stuff. But if that thing is so unreliable that it's not going to last long term, even if you like it, again, it's very hard to sell that. And I don't think people like that enough to do that amount of work. And that's why I said those byproducts of weight loss, diet, working out in the gym, all that stuff is actually the top tier of the people who like doing the things.
Yes.
Because they're crazy enough to stick in it through thick or thin and do all those things. If you can't find something you like enough to do that, it won't work. And so you have to find other means.
Yeah, we're trying to set the standard by looking at the outliers,
Right.
and like that, it just doesn't meet the vibe check. You know,
Well,
it's like
they're not going to eat less calories long term. They'll do it for the time that they're in it.
Yeah.
But unless they can cross that threshold of, like, yeah, like, I'm taking this super serious to the point where, like, you're like us, it's not gonna, like, and I want people to get there. I totally want people to find that. I just don't think it exists it exists, but I don't think that most people, that's an easy thing to find for most people for two reasons. One, the amount of time you need to stick with something. Jiu-Jitsu is a good example to get to that point. Like, again, it's hard because you have to stay uninjured and all that stuff. It just doesn't. There's so many things that have to happen to stay in something long enough to do it, to get to that point. I don't think it's time conducive for most things, and I really don't think the gym fulfills that at all. I think most things that do better, jiu-jitsu, running, things that make people feel good right now.
And like that, you know, when I think about jiu-jitsu, it's like you talk about like injuries and things like that. It's like it is such a long game, and at some point, I feel like you do kind of get to the point where you're just trapped and you're going to be doing it for life. But that takes a very long time to get to. I mean, I broke my leg, and the next week I was in class, like, you know, watching, because I was like, I don't want to break the habit of being in here. And the second I was able to get back on the mats, I'm back on the mats. Now, would most people be like, you know what, is this worth a broken leg and a torn, you know, 2 torn labrums in my shoulders, a partial torn labrum in my hip? For me, absolutely. For 90% of the population, probably not a great idea. Like,
on to the next one, right? Like,
on to the next one.
At 45, a chance.
Yeah.
Like, running a chance. All of them will have the same story. Well, I kind of got shin splints when I started running, so, like, it wasn't worth it. So, like, we can't rely on that as the number top tier. Even though I want, like, it is my top tier.
I want them to do that, but yeah, it's not going to happen.
I just can't rely on it. Just like I can't rely on people to restrict calories long term. I can rely on them to restrict them a little bit, but, like, not that much. And so it's always going to come down to me, overall, general activity, no matter what. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of those things, it just, now I'm turning into them. I just feel like it has to, at least where we live in this world right now, because if it doesn't, again, we're relying on exercise and gym and whatever top tier things to get the byproducts of weight loss through dieting long term, not for the 12 weeks that you didn't get injured or you liked it enough to do it. It's after that, which, again, we don't have success stories in a large enough quantity of, like, the 2, 3, 4, 5 year mark.
Well, and it's like, you know, in the evidence-based space, you know, kind of what I've seen too is when I you know, have pushed back when the initial wave of this, and I don't really care that much about the argument, to be honest, is because the work that I do is really based on what can I do to get to the person to the place where they'll actually just want to do any kind of work. It's not about the specifics, so I don't really care about the arguments that much. But I was kind of like, we're inhibiting people from doing the thing, and then, you know, they say like, oh well, we're only seeing this, and I'm like, okay, well, we can look at the Bengali study and we can show that, like, people who have a higher output throughout the day, depending on their workload, will be able to eat the same amount of calories as people and be at a weight that is, you know, 30% less than those people. Yes, I mean, a huge difference. The Bengali study is a massive difference between the executives and the workers on the floor, right? And we look at that J-shaped curve, and then the argument becomes like, oh, well, that's not what I'm talking about. And it's like, well, but you're not telling people that's not what you're talking about. You're making a blanket statement.
You're making a blanket statement that exercise is good, and if you count your calories and stay in a deficit long enough, you'll lose weight. But, like, no, I challenge someone to say this is going to be a keep it off scenario. Then no one does it. All that message is like, yeah, when you cut calories, you lose weight. Yeah. Fuck, the sky's blue, motherfucker. Like,
again,
Actually, it's not. It's only blue during the day.
the roofers that are, the roofers around here, like those dudes, like they might be a little bit overweight, but very few of them are obese. And you know what they do? I'm gonna watch these guys. They eat gas station food. They drink a 12-pack of beer or more a day. They finish their work day. They go play soccer, and then they go home and sleep. Those dudes are doing everything wrong according to the fitness community, yet they actually are probably seeing the at least body composition wise. Who knows what like the internal health is going on.
But that's
But that's all they're pushing is body composition. Really, that's all that fitness is pushing is body composition.
They're pushing body composition and they're pushing muscle mass. Well,
yeah, which is body composition, right? Like it's like
it just like man, like I don't know. I just don't. I'm not sold. And I'm someone from there, and that's why I like to kind of wrap this up with even the TikTok influencers is like, I would rather come from a spot where we're persuading people to do something.
Yes. And
in a high enough volume that they can see results without having to rely on an activity that they like, and then dissuading them from doing the activity that they like. Like, well, I want to do pickleball, but like, this fucking guy said like I should go to the gym.
Yeah.
Like, no, honestly, you should do pickleball if you're going to do it 8 times a week.
And let's say that they are just like picking up walking, and let's say they don't see results, but they keep walking. Right now, Are they probably getting metabolically more healthy? Probably. They're adding activity, and then maybe they do it a little bit more and a little bit more, and maybe they don't see the body composition results that we're selling. But if we're creating a more metabolically healthy environment just through some increased movement, which is the movement guidelines that we're trying to shoot for, and then hopefully they're like, oh, I feel a little bit better. Actually, I move better. Now I can maybe do something like pickleball, or I can do something like F45 because now I feel like I have a little bit of capacity to try something a little harder. And if they can layer that on, all of a sudden we're adding a little bit of intensity to the day in concert with that low level intensity, and we'll just see improvements in the things that actually people want, right? Like, yes, they all want body composition changes, but they really just want to feel better. And if you can make people feel better, they're going to do more.
Yeah, and I haven't like found anyone that does walking that hasn't gotten that. And like,
well, that's true. Yeah,
the amount of volume that people would have to do to see a lot of these results is a lot higher than it's like 12,000 plus steps a day.
Yes.
But like that's now we're getting into you need to go to the gym territory. Cool.
Yeah.
But like I'm still willing to bet my strategy on the other one, mostly because of those barrier to entry thing. Yeah. And like I said, in our book, the top layer, the top rung is still fulfill your day with as much of the thing that you like the most, whether that activity wise, and this has nothing to do with walking or whatever, that needs to be number one, maxed out. Then you would go through the check of how's my food and how's my need, right?
Yeah.
It's we're selling both messages. It's just that it's not the specific top tier isn't the gym. It's the whatever the fuck you like.
And you will find that you will do the thing you don't want to do if it helps to bolster the thing you like. And again, neither one of us like working out. I don't think either one of us likes doing mobility or stretching or PT exercise or any of those things, but we do it because it will bolster the activity that we want to be better. I hate cardio. I sold my hack squat and bought an assault bike. Yeah. Because that's more important to my goals now than, and trust me, I would love that hack squat was like my prized possession because it's, I
bought anything, that should be the number one thing people should find. Like that's coming from the walking fucking dude is like, if you can find something that you can stick with long enough where it can force you to do the things that all these people are telling you have to do, that's the only way it sticks. And I'm 100% serious. That's the only way it sticks. Because you're not going to count calories long term. You'll do it, like I think, like, and I'm saying long term. You'll do it for a little bit, but it's just a tool to
like. And again, it's like there's all the joke about addiction, and like people are like, oh, all this stuff about addiction and how it isn't food or whatever. I was like, but again, you find you a crackhead that needs to get cracked. They're going to do things they don't want to do in order to get that thing. If you can find someone that loves some kind of workout or some kind of thing, they will do the thing they don't want to do in order to achieve the thing.
If I was a drug dealer, that'd be like, you can have your crack if you can stay in a calorie deficit for 2 years. They'd fucking do it, and I'll give you crack every day. They would,
which would also help with the calorie deficit.
With the calorie deficit, that's what fitness and nutrition coaches don't have.
They don't have the crack.
Powerful enough. They don't have something powerful enough for people to actually do it and like it. not even like it. Do it because they have to do it because they like something so much. Like we're not selling it. We're kind of that intermediary without the crack, and it's like you need the crack.
That's good. That's good. That's good. I mean, I think that that wraps it up right there. That's a real that's the fucking that is the sell. There is like, what is the crack? What is the drug? What is the thing that will entice the person to do the thing that they don't necessarily want to do in order to get what they want? And we think we think the crack is the 6-pack, but it's not. It's never going to be.
No, that's the side quest to get the crack. And like we don't honestly, fitness nutrition people for the most part don't got the crack.
No. And the GLP-1 all of a sudden did their job better, and they're like mad. Yeah,
that was like the anti-crack.
Yeah,
it's actually the other side of the coin.
It's like it's the opioid blocker, because now they can do heroin, but it won't do anything.
Oh man, I love it. Yeah, I'm ending this. This is
sick.
Don't got the crack. We can go with that at some point.
I think that'll be clipped out. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.